Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be doing an image transfer on fabric, and I'm going to be using the InkAid process to do this. Now, I'm going to be doing this on fabric, but just so you know, you can image transfer on so many different surfaces, from wood to paper to metal to fabric. I mean, just the sky's the limit on what you can transfer this onto. Now, when it comes to fabric, one of the questions that I've been asked is, can you wash it? Well, in this video, I have an answer for that. Now, I didn't know if you could, so I did a little experiment, and I'm going to share with you what happened with that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with an image that I've put onto the transfer film, and then I'm going to take this and put it onto fabric. Oh, and at the end of the video, I'm also going to show you two different things that you can do with your image transfers on fabric. I'm going to start out by putting a piece of tinfoil down to protect my surface. And you'll see why once I get started with it, why I want something non-absorbent under there. One of the things I'm checking for right now on the transfer film is which side is the smooth side and which side has the coating on it, because I want the coating side to go down on the transferee solution. That's really important for this process to work. In order to transfer that image that was printed on a pigment-based inkjet printer, I'm going to need the transferee solution. That's the stuff that's in the jar. And I'm putting a generous amount on here. Because fabric really absorbs liquids, you really want to make sure that you've got plenty on here. When I'm working on fabric, I use significantly more of the transferee solution than I do if I'm doing it on, say, something like paper, simply because the fabric is a lot more absorbent. Then you want to carefully place your image, not drop it on there like I just did, but place it where you want it, and then gently press the image into the transferee solution. And now comes the really hard part. This is the part where you need to wait 2 minutes to let all the stuff do its magic before you lift up that film. If you're just getting started with the InkAid image transfer process, you might have some questions about some of the specifics about what was just done here. And I have got an entire video that goes in depth for you with everything you need to know for the first time you're doing an InkAid image transfer. And I'll have that link down below for you so you can check that all out. Well, now I've waited 2 minutes and it's time to lift off that transfer film and see what's transferred. As I'm doing this, you might notice that I'm doing it kind of slowly, somewhat gently. And that is very intentional. Something else that was intentional was putting that tinfoil under there. I mean, yes, it protects the countertop, but that's not something that's a big deal to me. What is a bigger deal to me is how well the liquid, the fluid, the transferee solution stays in the fabric so that I can do this transfer. I found that if I was doing this on top of something like paper or something that was absorbent, it would actually absorb a bunch of that transferee solution so that there was less in the fabric. So that's why I found putting tinfoil underneath was very, very helpful. Well, here's what it looks like completely dry. Now, right along here where I'm pointing, that is the area where the transfer film was. So that area of the fabric is now stiffer because that's where the transfer happened. Are these things washable once they're dry? Well, I did a little experiment to see what would happen if I put these in water. And I'm going to show you what I did using this purple photo. Whenever I'm printing a sheet of transfer film using a pigment-based inkjet printer, I tend to fill it edge to edge to use up every bit of real estate and then just cut apart things like the photos here that I want to use on specific transfers. I've checked to make sure that I know which side is the glossy side and which side has more of a matte feeling, because that's the side everything's printed on, and I want to get that matte side into that transferee solution that's going onto the fabric. And because this is such an absorbent surface, fabric is, I am using plenty of that transferee solution to do this. Once the image is placed down there, then I need to gently press it into the transferee solution. I'm going to use a brayer here, but if you're gentle with your hands, you can do that too. I am terrible about judging time, so I am going to set a timer here for 2 minutes so I know when it's time to lift up that transfer film. It's been 2 minutes, so now I can lift up that transfer film. Oh, and by the way, that 2 minutes is a guideline. If you're a little bit before, a little bit after, not a problem. But in general, just kind of shoot for around 2 minutes to wait. I let it dry completely. This is what it looks like with the excess white fabric cut off around the edges. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into 4 parts, because 2 of these parts I'm going to put in the water and 2 of them I'm not. That way we can compare and see what happens because it's in the water. So this is sort of my washing machine simulation. And yeah, in the process of doing this, I really have mad respect for everybody who's ever done laundry without a washing machine. Because wow, it's just a lot more work than tossing it in. All right, so first thing I've done is put them here in the water. And I'm just rubbing my fingers on them, kind of just wadding them up a little bit. And if I had some kind of little miniature dollhouse size washboard, I would be rubbing them along that. But since I don't have one of those, I'm just going to kind of rub them against each other, rub my fingers on them, trying to simulate what they would do when they were in a washing machine. Now, if there are any designers, engineers for washing machines watching this and thinking, that's not what happens in a washing machine, yeah, I know. You kind of got to roll with me, kind of get the spirit of what I'm trying for here. Now, if you've got eagle eyes, you might have noticed there's some areas of that purple that are starting to look a little bit almost green. So that means these are not suitable for doing on clothes. It's not going to stand up to going through the washing machine over and over again like that. But let's say you're doing an art quilt and you want to have an image on fabric. This would absolutely work for it. So these two pieces here that I've put in water, have I ruined these? Absolutely not. I actually love the weathered and worn kind of look that they're going to get. So after I finish giving these the little washing machine treatment, I'm going to let them completely dry and I'll show you what I make with them. I'm going to put the photo back together. Two of the pieces went in the water, two of the pieces did not. And so you've got this contrast of sort of a beaten and weathered and worn couple of parts, and then a very bright and vibrant and brand new couple of parts. And I love how they look next to each other. It's fascinating to me how each color behaves a little differently. Because you can see the green and blue card that I've done using the same technique. Everything was the same that I did, except for the color. And so only the purple one had the areas of green show up. In the other two, it just sort of ended up very, very weathered and worn, the parts that had gone through my little faux washing machine. And using fabric to do this adds just that little bit of texture to the image that's going on the card. And I just realized I have not even mentioned what kind of fabric that I'm using. You might think it's something special. It's not. It's plain old white cotton fabric. I couldn't even tell you what kind of white cotton fabric. The main reason that I chose to use this fabric is it's what I had on hand. Yep, that was the big deciding factor. Now, I promised you 2 different ways you could use these, and so let me show you the second way using embroidery. This is the first image transfer that you saw me do in the video, and it was a black and white photo. And to me, it just needs a little bit of color, needs a little bit of punching up. And because it's on fabric, that means it can handle having some embroidery done, having that needle pulled through it. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the fabric is stiffer anywhere that transfer film was. And so, yeah, it's stiffer, but you can still embroider in it. You can still sew through it. Notice how I have to really work to pull that needle through? That actually has nothing to do with the image transfer and has everything to do with the needle that I chose and the fact that I am using 6 strands of embroidery thread here. Now, I couldn't find my favorite needle that is just the right size, so the one that I'm using actually has a pretty big eye to it, so it could accommodate all those threads going through. Now, you might be wondering, could you use a sewing machine to stitch on top of one of the InkAid image transfers onto fabric? And the answer is absolutely yes. My sewing machine has no problem stitching through this. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to see more videos, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. If you're new to the InkAid image transfer process, you might have some questions about it. And I've got an entire video that answers everything that you need to know to get started making those transfers. And I'll have that link down below for you. Well, thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.